There was a book written in I think in the early 50s by an author, actually a pastor in New York City by the name of Vincent Norman Peale. The title of the book, Power of Positive Thinking. Now, while the book did not receive good reviews from the academic fields, psychology, sociology, those folks, it was wildly popular. I think in the first 3 years it sold 2.5 million copies. The book basically talked about the idea that by thinking positive thoughts, you can somehow change your future, that you can will something positive to happen by dwelling on positive thoughts instead of negative thoughts. Well, while the academic reviews weren't great on the book, there probably was something of substance there. We look today at the what some would call motivational speaker field, folks that make a living speaking to corporations, to various organizations. The people that they have giving these speeches, they're experts in something specific. So if a corporation is looking at one specific thing that they want to improve, they'll invite an expert in to talk to them about how to do that. We've talked a little bit, I think this past summer, about sports psychology, a little bit about the work of Dr. David Cook. Sports teams from all over the world, sporting figures from all over the world, hire him to coach them, to teach them how to train their minds. How to train their minds, because he's telling them there will be a time when you are down, when there is seems to be no possible way that you're going to achieve your goal, that you're going to win the game or achieve the mark that you have set. And he said, when you're in that place, that's not the time to be trying to train your mind to think positively. You've got to do that beforehand. You've got to practice being in those situations mentally. You've got to envision success. In golf, he says, painting the shot like Picasso. I'm going to hit the ball, it's going to take off to the left, draw back to the right, it's going to curve around those trees, and then nestle right up onto the green 3 feet from the hole. You picture that shot, you take your club out and you do it. Or in sports car racing, the sports car drivers, they are taught to envision the track. In fact, nowadays they have computer simulations where they can really visualize the tracks. And they spend hours visualizing the corners and visualizing making passes going into the corners, coming out of the corners. What do they have to do to carry speed in, carry speed out? They don't wait until they get to the track to figure it out. We see it in the corporate world too. One example would be, and I'm giving away some of my colors here, but Alan Mulally and Ford. When Ford hired Alan Mulally as their CEO, it was one of the darkest hours of the Ford Motor Company. In fact, no one in the family and no one in the boardroom thought that they were going to make it out still as a privately held company. They thought that they were going to have to sell the company or they were going to have to go completely public because the Ford family owns all the voting stock. You might own stock in Ford, but it's not voting stock. It's a privately held company. Alan, when he was talking with Bill Jr. about the possibility of coming to work for Ford, discussed a basic outline of what he would do if he was CEO. And he had 4 points that he was going to do. He was going to address their situation with a plan. And he had a process. He had developed a process of management at Boeing Corporation. He was positive that it would work at Ford Motor Company. He believed that he could take that process with him and with the right people in the right places, addressing the real problems of the day, not ignoring them, that he could turn the company around. He had faith that he could do it. So we talk a lot about faith and believing, just believe. In fact, when it comes to religion, some people say, well, you know, it really doesn't matter what you believe. It's just that you have faith. You've got to believe in something. In our opening passage for the epistle reading today, our author gives us a definition of faith. What is this thing that we call faith? And it goes something like this. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That explains it all, doesn't it? Clears it right up. What does that mean? Well, some people in the secular world, and even some people in the Christian church, would say that what this means is that if you have enough faith, you can make it a reality. This thing that you're envisioning, this thing that's not seen, this thing that you hope for, if you have enough faith, you can make that a reality. You can realize it through believing in it. And to some degree, that's what the sports psychologists are doing. That's what the motivational speakers in the corporate world, that's what they're doing. But is it really what they're doing? Or is it maybe only what they appear to be doing? A well-known Lutheran theologian would rather describe faith this way. Faith is a firm confidence in things hoped for. And it's a conviction regarding the things that are not seen. Now, that definition doesn't sound a whole lot different, does it? But if you look at it closely, it is. Your faith is not making something become a reality. Your faith simply is a demonstrated confidence in this thing that is hoped for. The outcome is outside of you, see? Confidence is somehow inspired in you. Conviction is wrought in you. And because of that, faith is produced inside of you regarding this thing. Now, that could be secular, that could be in the sports world, that could be in the business world, or it could be in the religious world. Now, When I go outside in the morning, well, actually I don't do that in the morning most of the time, do I? I get on my bicycle. So when I finally do get in the car, I have faith that the engineers did their job right. And that when I turn that key, electrical things are going to happen, computer things are going to happen, and mechanical things are going to happen, and the car's going to come to life, and I'm going to be able to drive it. I have confidence in this thing that's not seen. I can't see the electrons. I can't see the computer. I don't know how that stuff works. But I have confidence that it's going to work. When you go to the airport and you give your ticket to the person at the gate and you get on board that airplane, it might not be a strong faith, but you have faith that the plane is going to take off and that it's going to fly to its destination and land safely. That's faith. You can have faith in people. You can have faith in organizations. And this faith usually is based on a consistent track record. It's windy, isn't it? It's really windy out there. That faith is inspired by a consistent track record. Someone who always does what they say they're going to do, you're going to trust that person when they say, I'll pick you up at 6. You can have faith that they're going to be there at 6. But saving faith is a little bit different. Now, see, faith is placed on an object outside of you. So if you have faith in another person, you have faith in this mechanical device, you have faith in an organization, you have faith in a God, you can have faith in the God of Muhammad or in the gods of, and I can't name them all, the Hindu religion. You can have faith in them. What's the substance of that faith? What is generating that faith? What produces that faith in you? Well, when we look at the Christian faith, we know what's producing that faith. And it is a track record of God keeping his promises. And here in the chapter 11, we've got a list of people who believed in the promises of God. People who saw those promises fulfilled. From Abel through Enoch, Noah, Abraham. I mean, Abraham heard God say, you know, I know you live in the city of Ur and you've got a family here and it's a nice support system, but it's time to go. Get up, leave. And I'm going to take you to a land that you don't know, and I'm going to give it to you. And even though you don't have kids, I'm going to create a great nation out of you, and the whole world is going to be blessed through you. Abraham had faith in those words. Abraham believed that God was going to keep his promise. How do we know that Abraham believed? Because he got up and left. Because he went. If he had just sat there on his hands and said, I believe you, God, I believe you, and when I get a kid, I'll go. That's not faith. That's not faith in the promise of God. Isaac and Jacob had that same kind of faith. So did King David. So did the prophet Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. I could go on. God had a consistent track record of promising and keeping his promise. But our author of the book of Hebrews here tells us, reminds us, that none of these people who are recorded in what we would call God's Faith Hall of Fame, none of these people actually really saw the ultimate promise. Abraham did see his son Isaac, and he did believe God was even able to raise Isaac from the dead when he asked him to sacrifice him. Joseph really did believe that God was going to take the nation of Israel back from Egypt back into the promised land, because he said, when you go, don't leave my bones. Take them with you, because I want to be buried with my dad and my granddad and my great-granddad. Moses believed, but he didn't get to go into the promised land. Much less did he get to see the prophet that God would raise up who would be like him. Isaiah, who gives us such an incredible picture of the servant of God, lived 700 years before that servant was born. None of these people ever got to see God's servant. But he still came. And next week, we're going to start looking forward to celebrating that first coming of the servant. And we're going to be remembering the times that he comes to us in his body and blood at the altar. And we're going to be looking forward to a time when he's going to come again. Because remember, there's that consistent track record, right? God kept the promises that he made to the prophets. God kept the promises that he made to Abraham. And the whole world has been blessed through Abraham's seed, that is Christ. The difference between the faith that an athlete has in envisioning a positive outcome and the faith that we have that Jesus Christ has purchased us and will save us. The difference is the object of the faith, what we're believing in. Saving faith's object is always and only Jesus Christ and Christ crucified. It is always believing in the work that he did on the cross to forgive our sins, to cleanse us from all unrighteousness, knowing that his resurrection places him as the firstborn of those who come back from the dead. So we know that it's going to happen. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen our Lord in person before his death or afterwards, after his resurrection. I haven't seen him physically with these eyes. I'm pretty sure none of you have. But we trust the testimony of the apostles and the disciples that did see it. And we trust the track record of the one who promised. And what's the end result of all that? Well, let me read 3 verses from the chapter 12. It's not part of our readings this morning, but Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses, talking about all the people that he had just named, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that's set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him, did you catch that? Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. If we're going to envision something, if we're going to be a race car driver and we're going to train for Road Atlanta and the Petit Le Mans, our goal is to focus on the object of our faith. That's Jesus Christ. Whatever you're doing, whether it's at work, at home, at the grocery store, that should be your focus. He should be your focus. All times, in all places. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of your faith, who for the joy set before him. What is the joy that was set before Christ, that he would live through that stuff, that he would die? You know what that joy is? It's you. It's you. Because he knew that in 2018, he could say, Marianne, I died for you. You have faith. Hubert, you are going to endure to the end, and you will hold on to your confession. You're mine. Marcia, you're mine. That is the joy that was set before Christ. That's why he did it. Think about that for a while. You were worth it to him. Not even just worth it. You were a joy to him. Fix your eyes on him. Run the race. Endure to the end. That's the message of the book of Hebrews. Here's what he's done for us. Knowing everything that he's done for us, how can you do anything but finish? Finish the race. And as we finish this morning, let's put some feet to our faith and gather up our tithes and offerings.